Here with me is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan. Thank you for joining me this morning, sir. So the indictment does say, thank you. The indictment does say, as I mentioned, the documents included U.S. defense, nuclear capabilities, potential U.S. vulnerabilities to a military attack. They were kept in unsecure areas like a bathroom, a ballroom, a bedroom. And the indictment says that Donald Trump lied to lawyers, his own lawyers, which resulted in false statements to the FBI so that he could keep those documents. Is all of that, any of that, acceptable to you?
Dana, the standard is clear. The standard is Navy versus Egan, a 1988 case, unanimous decision from the court that Justice Blackmun wrote the opinion, and it said the president's ability to classify and control access to national security information flows from the Constitution. He decides. He alone decides. He said he declassified this material. He can put it wherever he wants. He can handle it however he wants. That's the law. That's the standard. And Jack Smith can do all this 37 different counts and whatever he wants to do, but that doesn't change the standard. The standard that the Supreme Court in a unanimous decision said was that he can classify and he can control access. He has the sole authority.
In this indictment, he states on at least one occasion that he did not declassify the information. When he's showing a document to somebody who doesn't have a security clearance, I might add, he says explicitly that it is classified. He didn't declassify it.
Dana, he has said time and time again he's declassified all this material. This is the most political thing I have ever seen. They have been out to get President. They're indicting President Trump on Tuesday for having material that he declassified that was protected by the Secret Service. And the people who are doing it is the administration, the Justice Department, from his opponent in the upcoming presidential election. I mean, this is as political as it gets. And frankly, Dana, it's part of a pattern. We've seen it time and time again with the president over the last 7 years. They try one thing, then they try another. They've continued to go after him. And I think anyone with common sense can see that.
Okay, this is a very detailed indictment. A couple of things that you just said. Number one, the Secret Service, they are charged with protecting the president. They didn't even know, according to the indictment, that those documents were there. So that wasn't their job. Number two, do you have evidence that the president, when he was president, now former president, actually declassified these documents before he took them?
I go on the president's word, and he said he did. And the Supreme Court said that's what counts. So we can have all the things Jack Smith wants to say, but everyone sees this for the political operation it is. The standard is the standard. I didn't set the standard. The Constitution and the Supreme Court did, and they did it in a unanimous fashion, and it was opinion written by Justice Blackmun. So that's the standard. That's the fact. Jack Smith can write whatever he wants, but this is so political. In 2016, I mean, every election we've now seen this, Dana. 2016, it was a dossier that they used. They knew it was false. They used it to go get a warrant to spy on his campaign. 2018, it was the Mueller investigation.
Okay.
2020,
they suppressed the Biden
laptop story with the 51 former intel officials. 2022.
Let me stop you right there, sir. First of all, I want to go back to just one of the things that you
said. Now they're indicting him before the 2024 presidential race.
July 21st.
Every single election, they've done something.
On July 21st, a recording of a conversation that he had said, quote, as president, I could have declassified it, talking about a document he was holding. Now I can't. That means it wasn't declassified. But I want to move on to what's in this indictment. I'm sure you've seen the photos from the indictment. I'm sure you've seen the photos from the indictment.
The same as saying he didn't.
There are classified documents in the bathroom, in a ballroom stage, and classified information that we're talking about. Information that the United States shares with its allies, critical information, strewn on the floor. Does that look secure to you?
Again, Dana, the standard is the standard. The President of the United States, he can classify and he can control access to national security information however he wants. That's the standard. That's the Constitution. That's what the court said in Navy versus Egan, a 1988 case. I don't know how many more times I can say it.
Okay,
so if he wants to store material in a box in a bathroom, if he wants to store it in a box on a stage, he can do that. That is just what the law and the standard is. So again, I think this just underscores how political this whole thing is. Jack Smith I mean, you know how political it is when they selected Jack Smith as a special counsel. I actually said in a deposition with Jack Smith, we deposed him on May 29th, 2014, because he was looking to prosecute people who were targeted by Obama's IRS, people Lois Lerner was going after.
Sir,
we actually had to depose
You can keep
Jack
talking
Smith,
about
and
this.
that's
I
the
want
guy
to talk
Garland
about the
picks.
substance of this indictment. I want to talk about the
And I've told you
alleged
time and time
obstruction
again
in
what
the
the standard
indictment.
is.
I want to talk about the alleged obstruction in this indictment. Here is
You
what
can't obstruct when there was not an
Here
underlying
is what
crime.
the indictment said. The indictment said Trump directed Nada, who's his personal aide, to move boxes before Trump attorney won's June 2nd review, so that many boxes were not searched and many documents responsive to the May 11th subpoena could not be found and were in fact not found by Trump attorney one. In plain English, this alleges that Trump instructed his aide to help him remove sensitive documents in defiance of a federal subpoena. A, does that trouble you? And B, if he thought that he had the right to have these documents, why was he trying so hard to hide them?
No, it doesn't bother me because, again, you can't have obstruction of something when there was no underlying crime. The standard is set. The standard is what the Constitution says, and the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, has the ability to classify and control access to information. That's what the Constitution and the court have said. So you can't obstruct when you can't obstruct when there's no underlying crime.
He is not the President of the United States.
That is the fundamental flaw.
And you're just taking him at his word.
And when he was president, he declassified the material.
He says point blank.
He says
point blank on tape, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't. He says in his own words, it's on tape as part of this indictment that he did not declassify the material. Therefore, it is classified.
Saying he could have is not the same as saying he didn't.
He said now
I
can't.
He has declassified this material. He said that now he can't, right, because he's not president now, but when he was president, he did declassify. He said that.
Which means that what he was holding was classified.
No, not if he declassified it when he was president of the United States, for goodness sake.
But he's saying point blank in this audio tape
is
that he did not declassify it. What you're saying just doesn't make sense on its face.
This is what this truly is, Dana, is an affront to the rule of law. It's an affront to consistent application of the law. You had Secretary Clinton, who had classified material on a server. She was not president of the United States. She was Secretary Clinton. You have that happen. Nothing happens to her. When you have two people who do the same thing, and one has the standard that I've talked about, but the only one who gets indicted is the Republican. The only one who gets indicted is the one who was actually president, who did it the right way. Oh my goodness. That is what the American people see. And the other thing that troubles me about this, and this is total affront to the rule of law, is that Jack Smith went and got the president lawyer's notes. You talk about a violation of fundamental liberty.
Let's talk about that in a second.
Get access to
Sir, I want to go back.
Privilege.
There's a lot to unpack here. I want to go back to something that you said.
And they violated that.
We were going back about the classified documents, but there's something else I want to point out, which is that the Presidential Records Act says that upon the conclusion of a president's term in office, that the president should not have, I'm reading here, the Archivist of the United States shall assume responsibility for the custody, control, and preservation of and access to the presidential records of that president. In English, that means that even if what he had was declassified, it was not his document. They were not his documents to have. They're the American people's documents. That is the Presidential Records Act.
I don't think the Presidential Records Act was mentioned anywhere in the indictment. 44 pages, 45 pages, I don't think it was mentioned. There's always a back and forth between administrations when they leave the president and the National Archives. That's just normal course of business. But not this time. They decided once again they were going to go after President Trump, something the country has seen the left do, seen the Democrats do for the past 7 years.
Mr. Chairman, there is an investigation going on.
That's going to happen on Tuesday.
There is an investigation going on of Joe Biden as we speak. It's not as if they just went after Donald Trump. There's an investigation of Joe Biden on the issue of having documents. We're waiting for that to come out.